Hey, it's Rabanzo here. As a gigging musician and fan of live music, I love sharing my personal experience and the things I'm learning from other music artists and professionals. You can be privy to those learnings by joining the Unstarving Musician community. In the process, you will be supporting me and this podcast. Just go to unstarvingmusician.com to join. You'll get an email from me, usually every 7 to 10 days, with tips, insights, secrets, all intended to help make your music journey a little better and brighter. All right, let's do this. This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. The podcast features conversations with musicians and music industry professionals, all intended to help musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Hey, hombres and hombrettes. Welcome to another episode. I am recording today's introduction from the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas, Arlington to be specific, where I did most of my growing up. I was in Austin last week, and I got to hang out with Brian Wolf, Ray Prim, and Laura Price, all former guests of this podcast. While I was there, I also got to be a guest on a podcast called Say It Loud. It features hosts from Austin's rock band Fair City Fire, that's with Brian Wolf, and local comedian Matt Jones. They get a little weird with a range of guests, including artists involved in the Austin music scene, and it's an honest look at being an independent musician done with a little bit of whimsy. Check it out at faircityfire.com/podcast, or on Facebook at Say It Loud Podcast, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. My featured guest today is Danny Wilkerson. He was recommended to me by Lannie Flowers, also a former guest of this podcast. Danny is one of those guys who lived and played music in DFW when I was doing so long ago. But this is our first ever conversation. We just recently met. He's been a longtime collaborator and songwriting partner with Lannie Flowers. He's been out of the music scene full-time anyway for a while, but he's been busy writing songs and recording on kind of a part-time basis, and he's put together a beautiful album over the course of 5 years titled Wilkerson. We talk about the making of the album, the challenges he faced along the way. You will get to hear a track called Let It Go Tonight at the end of this episode. Danny just sent me a copy of the CD. It's beautifully packaged. He spent time on artwork, liner notes. If you like that kind of thing, if you like collecting vinyl or CDs, you should check him out. I listened to it this morning. I've heard some previews of it. I'm really enjoying it. It truly sounds fantastic. It's available on iTunes, of course, and you can also preview it at DannyWilkerson.com. You should check it out. Here is me and Danny Wilkerson. Danny, welcome to the show.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Oh, man, my pleasure for sure. And shout out to our mutual friend Lannie Flowers at Spider Pop Records and the Lannie Flowers Band for connecting us.
Absolutely. Lannie's one of my best friends in the world. We've known each other for a long, long time. We've written a bunch of songs together, and he just traveled with me to the IPO festival in L.A., where I debuted one of these songs at the IPO just a week and a half ago. So,
how nice!
We're best mates.
Oh, that's so cool. He's such a nice guy, and you know what's funny? I don't know if you and Lannie had much chance to talk about how he and I know each other other than the podcast. But I guess it's probably been a few years now. I saw him. His band, which had Neil and Brandon and goodness, I'm forgetting the guitar player's name at the moment because he's kind of a newer friend. John
Stevens.
Yeah, John. Yeah, he's kind of newer, and Doc Davis. So I saw them.
Great guys, great musicians.
Yeah, I saw them at a club. My wife and I at a club in San Francisco, and it was the first time we'd ever been to an IPO event, and that was a lot of fun. Did you, when you did the event in LA, was it? So you debuted a song. Was Lannie playing as well in like his band, or?
No, it was. We actually, just because of the timing of it, I used all LA musicians. It was Chris Price and a lot of his bandmates, and then Bleu McAuley, who produced and co-wrote, my record, got up there with us. So,
cool.
They were a great band, but yeah, Lannie's band's fantastic. So.
Oh yeah, sounds like you had a good roster with you.
Yeah, they were fantastic. They were just awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Oh man, I bet that was a blast. By the way, tonight's an experimental episode because of the late time of day. I'm enjoying a second glass of wine, so I thought, well, I'm going to see how good my podcasting skills are after a couple glasses of wine. So if I break at some point for that, bear with me.
Hey, I love that. And before we get off Lannie, I just want to say he has a new record coming out in a bit, and I've heard some of it, and it's amazing. It's great.
I saw that, and I'm excited. I need to talk to him about coming back on the show. I've actually been thinking about doing that anyway, so that's good to hear. Do you know the timeline of that?
No, I don't know the exact timeline, so I hate to predict that at all because things change I just know that's how it was with mine. Just you get mixing or you just decide you want to add something. So
yeah.
But the things that I've heard on it are fantastic. So everybody's in for a treat on that deal.
That's exciting. And you know what? I'll still not get off of Lannie yet because I didn't finish my thought. I thought I did, but I started talking about wine instead. But I was living in Dallas-Fort Worth. Actually, I spent most of my life there and was there around some of the same music scene that you and Lannie were. I didn't know you guys really well at that time, but I'm pretty sure I saw the Penguins at least once. And was playing.
What years were you here?
Let's see. You guys had been at it for a while because I started playing around Arlington and Fort Worth in maybe like. I'm afraid to admit it now, maybe like 88 or 89. Does that sound right?
Okay, yeah.
So you guys were still going at it, but maybe had been at it for a while already. And this all came to me when I, was sort of meeting or re-meeting Lannie at that IPO event. And so today, when I was looking over some of my notes, for our conversation, I was like, "Oh, you were a Penguin also," and so we know a lot of the same people. I was looking at some of your pictures on Facebook, and like, oh yeah, there are a bunch of my old friends there as well.
Yeah, do you see the ones with the giant hair?
Oh yes! By the way, that's an awesome photo. And I was like, finally somebody with giant hair like me. I have some great ones too. I should probably just share that with you so you can feel better about your own giant hair. Oh
yeah, that's so funny. I look back at it. Back in the day, that was the thing. But I look back and go, wow.
Those are great pictures. Yeah, I saw a couple of old pictures of the Penguins, and it was great. I have to ask you, there's a radio personality that I don't know, but he did a nice promo video, which is more of an audio thing, but it's on YouTube for your new album. And the guy's name is George Gamark. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. George Gamark's a big deal around here. He used to have a show called The Rock and Roll Alternative. And he introduced a lot of people to a lot of great music. He was one of the first guys to be playing Squeeze.
He wasn't on the Zoo, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, he sounds a lot different now than he did way back when, at least in my memory. Or I might be thinking of, he's not Dr. Demento, right? Different guy.
No. That's a completely different guy.
Yeah. Oh, but
the Rock and Roll Alternative was a fantastic show, but that wasn't the only thing he did, but it's the thing I remember him most by. And he's just got an unbelievable record collection. 30 to 40,000 records.
That's amazing.
But back in the day, he was the man to introduce people to great music. And he was just great at what he did. He's got a great personality. And so it was so cool that he did that. I was super excited that he did that. So,
yeah, and for anyone listening, that I think probably the easiest way to find that is to go to DannyWilkerson.com, your website, and your Facebook and your other social stuff, Instagram and iTunes links are there. But your Facebook feed currently has that on there, and that was pretty cool. Nice thing that he did. What's funny, I wanted to ask you about him, but as soon as I said his name, when I heard myself say it, I'm like, okay, it sounds more familiar now when I say it out loud. Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah, you should interview him sometime, man. You talk about a guy that knows a lot of rock and roll trivia and information, and
You could talk to him all night long.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I may do that. So,
and I'm sure he'd be happy to do it too.
Cool. I was reading tonight that. Well, first of all, I was pleased to see that you're a drummer. I too am a drummer. But look at you. You've come out and written all these songs as well, and are singing quite nicely. I was reading tonight that you actually got recruited to replace the drummer for the Penguins way back when, and that I was not aware that you guys did the touring that you did and opened for bands like Cheap Trick and the Fabulous Thunderbirds and others. How long did that stuff go on when you were playing, and what was that like for you?
It was great fun. Obviously, we were trying to get our own record deal, and so, Lannie and I wrote the lion's share of the stuff once I had joined. There were some other guys, a guy named Kelly Creighton, the bass player, that would throw in and write every once in a while with us. But we were working really hard to try and get our own deal. So we'd take any place we could play where we could do our original stuff, but you had to mix in a lot of cover stuff back in those days. And and when we're touring, I mean, it's so different today because my son, he's in a pretty successful band, and they would go play these shows, and they'd show up in all the backline gear, the PA, the lights are everything's there, and they show up and do a 1 hour set, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, back when we were touring, we carried all of our own PA, our drum risers. So we had some of the staging stuff. We had all of our own, lights. And then we'd have to set up all that stuff, sound check it, play for 4 hours, sometimes longer, and then tear all that down and then go to the next night where we were playing and do the same thing. Occasionally you'd get to a place where you could play 4 or 5 nights in a row. But in between all that, we would get, we were touring all the time. So we would get all these opening slots. So we got to open up for so many bands. And that was always fun to do. And I put you in front of a lot of new people, which was great. And most of the time it fit and it worked great. One time we ended up opening up, sometimes we ended up opening up for people that were not a good pairing. Like we opened up for Crocus once. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah.
And a real funny thing that happened is Quiet Riot opened up for us.
Wow.
It just happened. The way it happened, they started taking off and the thing was already booked. And so, but yeah, we got to see a lot of great people and open up for so many different, I can't even remember everybody we opened up for, but there was a lot.
That's nuts. Yeah. So you and Lannie Flowers have been writing together for a long time. Are you a guitarist or multi-instrumentalist or predominantly a lyricist, or?
You know what? I write most everything on a guitar, occasionally on a piano. And I can play just enough guitar to be dangerous. I mean, I don't trust myself to play in the studio. And back when we toured, I think I played Shattered by the Stones on guitar and one other song. Can't even remember what it was. But I just never have felt comfortable enough with the guitar skills to play live. I want to do that. It's something I really want to work on and do. I love acoustic guitar, and I have more guitars than I should have probably for not being a guitarist, but I just love them. So, but
I was going to mention a friend of mine that you're going to
write most things.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I write most everything on guitar. That's where most of the stuff comes out of. So.
And I was going to say, if it's encouraging, there's a guy you probably know from Dallas-Fort Worth named Rex Brown who played bass for he and I went to school together and hung out a lot together and played together when we were really young and just kind of off and on as adults. But he kind of hunkered down for a few years and started playing guitar. And he told me, and I actually was hanging out with him in clubs, playing occasionally when he was doing it. He's like, yeah, I want to, get my guitar chops up. And then here he finally does his own record, which you might have heard. And he's playing a lot of guitar on it. He's not playing bass. Oh, I don't know. Maybe he does play bass on it. I think he might have another guy doing it in the studio. But So he's playing guitar, but he just hired on their tour that they did to support the record. He just hired some other. He had one guy who was a pretty hot guitar player that recorded on the album with him, that toured with him, and then he hired another guy. So I think you could just do the same.
Yeah, I'd rather just show someone what I'm hoping to hear, and then let someone much better do it. And there's so many great musicians that are so much better and so skilled. So yeah, isn't
it nuts? There's so many talented people running around today.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. When through the course of doing this entire record, I got to play with some of the most amazing musicians that I really you didn't deserve to even be in the room with. I mean, their quality, their skill was so far up there, and it's sad because a lot of those musicians, there's so many of them in Nashville and LA, and they're just incredible. And a lot of them are just looking for work.
Yeah, I was kind of floored at looking at the roster of people that worked with you, and I assume that some of that is a lot of it is relationships. But now that you're talking about this, I guess some of it is like, well, we got to work too. So yeah, it looks like a good project. We'll work with you. We like you. Was that kind of how it works out, or can you talk a little bit about some of those people?
Most of it was relational. When Bleu and I first started working together, of course, Bleu is tied in with so many great people, and he knows a ton of great musicians and has great relationships with so many people. So a lot of it came through him. But sometimes you call a horn player or a string player or something like that, and they show up and they just blow your socks off. They're just so talented, and we've got that here in Fort Worth too. I've got a cello player, a girl that I just love. She's incredible. And she'll come out and she can sit down and you can sing what you want her to play. You don't have to have charts, and she'll just do it. And it just blows my mind. And, you'd think she could be on a touring circuit or something, making a lot of money with someone. But the point is there's so much talent out there. I feel blessed to be able to work with the people that I work with. And I'm not only talking about on my record, but here, with the Penguins, with those guys, and we just have a lot of talented people around us, which is great.
Yeah, the Dallas-Fort Worth area is scary with talent, and I remember even when I was a young man playing and sort of learning my own way around the drum set, trying to figure out what I was doing with no formal education, learning frankly from watching a lot of guys from North Texas? Is that what they call the Denton?
North Texas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just watching those guys and learning from them, and then when my wife and I go visit and we go see some of our friends play, and we meet some new players, I'm just constantly blown away by the number of great players there, and it's kind of frightening.
Yeah, it is. It's just fantastic.
So
did you teach yourself to play drums by ear?
Yeah, I did. I had a tiny bit of. I wondered. Yeah, I had a tiny bit of music in college, but it wasn't my major or minor. And then, sort of later in life, I did sign up with a guy named Mike Johnston, who's based in Sacramento, California, but he has a wonderful online lesson platform and community, and but most of it is self-taught. And actually, it's funny, I went and bought some books that anyone who's ever played drums or various other instruments, a couple of basic books, just because I'm like, God, I'd really like to get my reading skills back up, because I never really had fantastic sight reading skills. So yeah, here I am still. It's fun. I mean, there's so much. As soon as I enrolled in Mike Johnston's school, I realized, there's just a whole universe of drums when you start looking at different styles and just get outside your comfort zone. It's endless, basically.
Right. Yeah, and I know there's so much value to using other drummers too. I mean, I played drums on the album, but I also was thrilled to have Joe Sieders from the new Pornographers. He plays on a song. He's amazing. And Ducky Carlisle, he plays on a few songs, and he's amazing. And I loved having those guys play. They're just incredible drummers. And sometimes you got to just know someone can do something better than you can, or maybe you just want to have a different feel than what you would put there.
Yeah.
So you just, I could have played drums on everything on the record, but I wanted the songs to be the best they could be. And there were certain songs that I thought, I think someone else could do this better. And so you invite someone else to play, and it's amazing. I love having somebody else play drums on that stuff.
Did you play any other instruments on the album?
I did percussion stuff. I think I played acoustic on a little bitty part, a variety of things like that, but that's it.
And then you're the man behind the microphone predominantly.
Yeah. I mean, I play drums, play percussion, did the lead vocals, bunch of background vocals, and just the writing and everything. So
how long in the making were the writing of the songs? How over what span of time are the songs on the album?
About 5 years, and there's a reason for that. It shouldn't have taken that long, but the project was self-financed, and so I tried to save up the money to make the trips, and I would have to go to LA. I'd have to go where Bleu was. And so, I'd go to LA, we'd write and then maybe lay down a basic demo of the thing. And then I'd come back. Bleu would add a few things to the deal to give it a little more feel of what it would sound like if we went the direction we were talking about. And then, I'd go up there and we'd do another song, maybe, 4 or 5 months later. So it'd be about 2 songs a year. And then when we got 5 done, or 5 or 6 ready, we lined up whoever we wanted to play on it and went to Ducky's studio in Medford, Massachusetts, and went ahead and finished those 5. And that's when we worked with the Boston Symphony Strings, and Ducky laid down his drum parts. I played drums in a couple of them. And so we finished 5 of them basically. And Ducky went ahead and mixed those. And so we had about half of the record done, and we made a few little tweaks to some of that. But, and then we just continued to do that. But there were some setbacks in that 5 years. I went through prostate cancer, which was a real drag. And so that set me back for a while, and I wasn't able to go up there, kind of had to go through that whole deal. And I had 2 hernia surgeries.
Oh man.
So one of those was with the Penguins when we went over to, I think we played at the Cavern Club for like the 2nd or 3rd time. Then I think we went to Sweden, maybe. I can't remember. We went to Germany one time, and, Ireland another time, and I think this was the Sweden trip, and yeah, the hernia happened there.
Oh my gosh!
So played those shows with the hernia, which wasn't very comfortable, and then came back and had the surgery. So there were a couple of setbacks. So maybe it would have been done in a little bit less time, 3 years or something like that. But the timeline didn't bother me. There's 2 things that were going on there. I wanted it to be really good. And I kind of had a vision for how I wanted it to go. And then there was also at the very end a weird thing that happened that I didn't expect, and it was fear of releasing it. I didn't let that slow down the release of it, but it's really scary as an artist, and it kind of surprised me when it started getting near the end. I was going, oh my God, what if I throw this thing out there and people hate it or start saying bad things about it? I'm going to be crushed. So I started getting a little scared at the end. So I just wanted everything. I was trying to make sure that everything about it was as good as it could be. And of course, the people that I was working with, Bleu and Manning and Miles Showell at Abbey Road and the pressing plant. I mean, I tried to use the best of the best to make sure that at the end of the day it was a quality project. Oh, and Dan Zimmer is a local guy here. He's a fantastic graphic artist, and that poor guy, we worked on the cover for a really long time on the cover art and completely changed directions. And he was such a patient guy, and he's so good at what he does. And but even down to the album art and the way the album goes together, it's kind of like a little piece of art where it no matter how you put the sleeves back together in the jacket, it changes the way the cover looks. So it's interesting, and that's of course on the vinyl. But so it took a while because I wanted everything to be right on it, and I hope I answered your question. That was a really long answer.
You did. No,
sorry.
And it, honestly, it sounds like no expense was spared, and not just, monetarily, but even just, attention to detail. It sounds, frankly, amazing. So
Thank you.
When you tell the story of it, I'm like, yeah, it sounds pretty amazing.
Thank you. That means a lot. I mean, we tried really hard to put together something. I wanted it to feel like what it felt like when I was young. I've got like 7,000 vinyl records.
No kidding.
And a bajillion CDs. I mean, I've been a music collector all my life, and I can't tell you how much what it means. I'm so glad vinyl came back, but it really never left me. I love sitting down to this day, just like I did back when I was in junior high and high school, pulling out an album, putting it on the turntable, and, looking at the cover while you're listening to it. And that's the experience I was trying to recreate the things that I loved when I was young.
Yeah.
So
I get it. I wasn't going to, it wasn't a given. I didn't jot it down as a question, but you mentioned your bout with cancer. I didn't know about the hernia surgeries, but I take it you are cancer free now?
Man, I'm totally great. Yes.
That's
Thank
fantastic.
Goodness. Yeah. It was the scariest part was before I knew what was going on, because they kept sending me for all these tests and I didn't know what was going on. And that's one of the interesting stories about this. One of the songs on this album is called "When Your Number's Up," and it actually ended up being a blessing. But I showed up at a session with Bleu, and I'd flown up there, and again, there's expense to that, the flights and rooms and everything, and I had been through so many tests over the months before that, and we get to we're literally sitting down to start the session, to start writing we just throw out ideas and try and get something going on. And I have an acoustic guitar in my hand and Blue's thinking around on the keyboards, and my phone rings and I see it's the doctor, and I said, man, I got to get this. So I walked to the other room and they said, we need to see you as soon as possible. And I said, can you tell me what they're doing? No, we just need to see you soon. And you know what that means, because if everything's good, they're going to just go, hey, you're good, don't worry about it. So I went back into the room and said, hey, Bleu, man, I think I might have cancer. It's weird. And he said some encouraging things, and I didn't want to ruin the session. There was it'd been a lot of effort to get there and make it happen. And so, Bleu, I'm dinking around on the guitar. Bleu starts playing that, really pretty piano piece at the first of it. And I threw out the line, 1,000 times I've made a mess, 1,000,000 times I've made amends. And he goes, that's a good line. And so we took off with that. And that was one of the fastest songs lyrically that came out of the record, because all these emotions were pouring out of me. I mean, I didn't know how bad it was or what it meant. I didn't know anything about it. So I had all these fears. I was looking at the future, at all these worst case scenarios and all this kind of stuff. And my mind was just going all those places. And that song just came out of that. There's the break in the middle of that song is the light flashing before the guy's eyes, And so, that's what that whole song, that's where that came from. And, of course, when I got back, I found out they could do surgery and get rid of it and all that, and it worked out great. So, and I've been cleaned it for 5.5, 6 years now. So it's all good.
Well, that's awesome. And I can imagine it's a little life altering. And I see that you, I don't know if this will stay up indefinitely on your website, but you have a lyrics page and the lyrics to When Your Number's Up and I assume what is the rest of the album. So that's cool. It'll be something interesting to go back and look at whilst listening after that.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Well, maybe it's a good segue to another thing that caught my eye. It happened to be the fact that you were a cancer survivor happened to be listed with a spanning career of many different careers, I guess. And you have done a lot of different things, and I suppose where I actually want to take that rather than talking about all the different things that you've done from a career perspective. But when you talk about self-funding having self-funded the album over the few years that you worked on it, was that literally just kind of saving up, putting some money at it to get part of it done, logistics, time passed by, and then saving up again and rinse, repeat until it was done?
Yeah. It was, and let's do this. And then, when it first started, I knew I wanted to do an album. I didn't know what all I would be able to do or pull off. And so, thank goodness I have a wife that's so supportive, and she would let me, go do all of those things, because it's not a cheap process. And so, and just like you said, you go up there and you do a song and you come back and you kind of go, okay, I'm going to do this again in 4 or 5 months whenever we can book the deal, and then book another session and we'd go do it again.
Sure.
And then when it got near the end, is when it really started getting expensive, because the cover art, the mastering, and all those things that you have to do to finish it up, you're at the end and you go, well, I can't quit now. So
did you kind of think at one point, you've got all the songs done, you have this moment where you're like, finally, and then you suddenly realize, oh crap, now I got to do all the cover art and all that. And now you've got that done, and now you're like, oh crap, now I got to market the damn thing so I can sell some copies.
Yeah, definitely. It's the thing about getting it all recorded and everything that I didn't realize was how hard it was just doing liner notes and things like that.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's tedious, and I've always seen them, but when you're doing them and you're having to try and remember all the things to put in there and make sure that everything legally is done right, as far as all the copywriting and all that kind of jazz. And there's a lot that goes into it. So the recording and writing is certainly a lot more fun. And
yeah,
I wish at that point you could just hand everything off and go, okay, here you go. Somebody else do this. But I honestly don't think I could have done that, because I'm just so detailed. I wanted to oversee all of it, and make sure I didn't feel comfortable delegating, because I had in my mind what I wanted to do. So,
are you planning to tour to support the album?
No, I can't. I'm not at a point where I can do that in my life right now. I mean, what I'd love to do is do some shows. Maybe I've talked to the Spider Pop guys about maybe doing an actual full blown show in LA, New York, Nashville, and maybe DFW. Or we could set up some really cool, fun listening parties in different areas of the country. And Lannie and I've talked about a few things too, which I can't really go into right now, but, we may end up doing something together where we do shows where both of us do our stuff.
That sounds like a great
together.
idea.
Yeah. And share band members and bring in all the extra stuff. I mean, on my stuff, you got to have strings and horns. And Lannie could use some of that too. So that'd be a really fun potential deal. So we'll see what happens.
That would be very cool. I'm going to take a side road here, and I wanted to ask you about growing up. I assume you were born in Texas. Is that right?
Yeah, I was born in San Antonio. And then when I was 6 months old, my dad was in the service. And so I lived in Germany for a few years, and then it was back to Texas. So I've lived here all of my life with except for the little stint in Germany. And
is that DFW for all of your life? Or?
Yeah, we lived in Houston for a couple of years, but it's been Fort Worth primarily all my life. And I actually live west of Fort Worth in another town right now. But, you know, I love Texas. I love it. I mean, I love visiting all parts of the world. One of my favorite things to do in my life is travel and go see new things and experience new places and food and cultures and all that. But, man, I always love coming back home.
Yeah,
so,
Texas is a lovely place, and the people are fantastic, and the food is amazing, and the musicians are amazing. And
yeah,
nice
and
place.
you know what? It's small enough to where if you live here for a long time, you get to know a ton of people. But it's also big enough to attract, you know, fantastic art museums, and you get to see great tours come through here, and so it's big enough to attract all those things, but it's small enough to where you kind of can get around easy and get to know a lot of people over your life.
Probably anyone who hears this
special.
that's not from Texas is going to laugh and go, "I thought there was nothing small about Texas," but I can relate, and I think that's a product of you having been there all your life. My wife, she and I met in Texas, and she had some formative years there, but she used to laugh because we'd walk in. I couldn't go anywere without us running into someone that I knew. That's finally passed because we've been going a long time. But
oh, trust me, back when we were the Penguins, we'd do a show. We'd have a stint in El Paso, and it takes 16 hours to get from Fort Worth to El Paso. I mean, it's amazing. I'll never forget the first time I went up into the Northeast and I drove through like 4 states in 4 hours. It blew me away. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. So it's a big state, but you know, I live in Fort Worth. So that's what I'm talking about.
So when did music grab you by the soul?
Oh man, that's easy. That's the first night the Beatles played on Ed Sullivan. I was sitting in front of the TV set, and I was very young, and it changed my life. I mean, I knew it did something to me so deep inside of me that I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. And from that moment on, that's what I pursued. I became a giant Beatle imitator and collector, and to the point where even my parents were trying to buy any other kind of music for me to expose me to something else. But, I was a giant Beatle fan, but that's where it all started for me. And to this day, I've never tired of them. It amazes me that they did everything they did in a period of 6.5 years.
Yeah.
Incredible output and quality output. And
after putting in 10,000 hours of live performances.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So,
it is. I interviewed did another interview earlier today with a woman named Lisa Sanders, who's based out of San Diego and has spent most of her life in Southern California, I believe. And she happened to mention that same televised broadcast of the Beatles in our conversation. And I didn't bring it up when she and I were talking, but there's a gentleman I met in California who's a great musician that I had the pleasure playing with once and have seen him a few times. And he had posted something on Facebook, and I don't know if it was because of something that was being observed about the Beatles or some comment that I had or something that I'd posted about them. And he said that, he was remembering the moment when he saw them on Ed Sullivan, and I think they were at the dinner table or something, and the TV was, in plain sight, and they came on, and his dad went to change the channel, and he just said, "No." And made his dad sort of like froze, and The rest was the music history.
Yeah, I mean, my parents basically forced me into it. My dad ran a laboratory, and we loved together. I have 3 brothers. At the time, I only had 1, I guess, but we loved going with him to this laboratory because we could look through microscopes and everything. And it was my brother's turn to go, and I evidently, according to my mom, threw a fit. And she set me in front of the TV and said, "Sit here and don't make another sound." And of course, that comes on, and it changed everything. So they kind of brought that on me. So,
that literally happened the night that they were on Ed Sullivan?
Yeah. It was an unplanned thing. I wasn't planning on watching that, but thank God it happened.
That's funny.
Was amazing.
You know, as I was doing, this is kind of funny, as I was doing some of my research this evening, I was on YouTube because of a couple of your videos, and as YouTube does, it shows you a lot of stuff you haven't seen that it's quite certain you need to see. And I saw the song from the Concert for George with Paul McCartney and Eric Clapton doing something. Yeah. So anyway,
that Concert for George was mind blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember watching that, and at some point, I think it was Tom Petty that did "If I Needed Someone." I hope I'm remembering that right.
I think that's right. Yeah.
But man, I just started crying, and you just start realizing, I'd always loved George Harrison, but unfortunately, it was after he passed away you realized the extent of what he wrote and the output. It was just amazing. And it's so amazing that he was in the background through a lot of the career of the Beatles. And of course, when All Things Must Pass came out, he kind of threw a lot of stuff out there that the Beatles had passed up on. And
yeah,
he was just so incredible. And I loved him back when he was in the Beatles, but I'm just saying it was at that point where all these artists are playing all these songs and you're just going, oh my gosh, what a loss.
Yeah, I know. And ironically, you mentioned Tom Petty, and a lot of folks were clearly, myself included, affected by that.
Absolutely.
I saw
Prince,
a similar.
We've lost some big people.
I know. I saw a similar interesting experience and felt it myself. And it's kind of funny, but I noticed that a lot of people I know had the same experience, and my wife and I were sitting here watching it, and it was Paul McCartney sitting in the car of the guy, I can't remember his name, the car karaoke guy that's got a late night thing.
Yeah.
And I literally was getting all emotional watching it, and my wife was tearing up, and we were seeing on Facebook that people were tearing up. I'm like, why is this happening? It's not like he's dead or anything, but I don't know, it's strange. The soundtrack of your life.
There's just, it is. It's all those things that were tied to your youth and the emotion of all the things that happened when I was growing up. I mean, you'd look to them, and things were changing around everything that they did. But there's so many things through your youth that you come up through, and they were a part of your life. And so it is emotional. I remember when Lennon passed away, it was Lannie and I were together. We actually were working together back then, doing, jobs between tours and stuff. And, we were behind a maintenance shop, and that watching the wheels came on, and both of us just started bawling.
That was nice.
I mean, it just unexpected, but those kinds of things, you just go, oh my God. And it's like the end of, it's the end of something, and you can't explain it, but you're just so sad that it's gone. And,
I think I realized.
Huge part of my life.
Yeah. I think I realized when, there was a time, I think, tell me if I'm remembering right, but Prince and David Bowie and Glenn Frey sort of sequentially left us in a short period of time. Am I remembering the time span about right? That those all sort of happened?
You know what? I'm not sure. I thought Glenn Frey was a bit earlier, but anyway, it doesn't matter. They're all huge losses.
Yeah. So, what I was going to say is that I just remember the day that Glenn Frey had gone, and it's not that these other two people weren't huge in, the background, the soundtrack. It sounds so cliche of my life, but just one kind of hits you at the right moment, or you reflect on all the right moments or the moments of your life when that happens. It's like, it's kind of devastating. All right, let's get off of that. I don't talk about dead people on my show.
Okay.
What else are you planning for the album in terms of marketing it or putting it out there? So we talked a little bit about the shows that you hope you might be doing. What else is down the pipeline, and maybe some of the stuff you have planned with Spider Pop?
Well, you know what? Actually, one of the owners of Spider Pop reached out to me recently about marketing some ideas. So I can't explain what those might be right now, but I do know we've got some videos already in the works. I'm hoping that we can do some of these shows that we're talking about, and I think it'd be really fun to do some listening parties. I hope the thing that I was telling you about earlier with Lannie will work out, where we can do some shows together. I think that'd be a blast. And so far, I mean, right now the album I'm still trying to get it out and to different areas of the world, breaking it into Japan. That's actually been more difficult than I thought it would be. Just finding the right people to connect with there. So working on that. Amazingly, the reviews have been mind-blowingly good, which has been incredible as an artist to see and read. It's just blown my mind. And so I'm hoping because of that, we can reach into some bigger markets. Primarily it's gone out to the power pop market, but I think there's things on the record that could go beyond that. And I'm hoping to exploit that as much as we can. So we're working on that right now.
Cool. Well, I honestly think it's a wonderful album. I look forward to digging into it some more. And if I may be a supporter of the podcast community and recommend to you that you talk to your friends at Spider Pop or anyone else that'll listen, that you send out whatever you would send out to someone and let them know what you're doing. I think that the music world and a lot of other people that have nothing to do with music but just kind of want to know about anything ranging from Texas to creators who are podcasting would love to learn about you and about the album. I think it would be a great gift to the podcasting community, both the listeners and people like myself, and certainly to people that want to discover your album. So I think you should put that in the fold.
Man, I'm ready. I'm up for anything. So I just want to get it out there to as many people as I can get it to, and exploit it as much as I can.
Well, great work, man. Danny, I really super appreciate you spending time with me. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I assume that DannyWilkerson.com, which will be in my show notes, is the best place to grab the album and learn about everything that you're up to.
Yeah, DannyWilkerson.com. You can order anything there. We're going to be adding T-shirts soon, but right now right now for $25, if you're in the USA, you get the vinyl, which is 180 gram vinyl, the CD, and a download card for $25.
Dang.
And and there's like a $6 shipping charge. So we even eat some of the shipping. And then if you're overseas, it's a little bit more, but we tried to make it affordable for people to get. And it's a vinyl package, and it's available. You can get it. You can actually get it. You can go to DannyWilkerson.com. You can get it at CD Baby. You can download the stuff on iTunes, Amazon. You get it at SpiderPop.com. It's pretty easy to find.
That's a fantastic offer too. And hey, if you're listening to this, you're going to get to hear a tune right after this, but check out the album. It is truly amazing. I'm really impressed with what sounds like your sort of dream album that you put together. It's pretty awesome.
It was. For people that love the Beatles and ELO and Tom Petty. Those are the kind of comments that we're getting. But Roger Manning Jr. from Jellyfish, he has been playing with Beck forever. He's on half the record. Becky Carlisle's 2-time Grammy winner. He's playing on the record and mixed half of it. David Spring has been nominated for Grammys. He mixed part of it. We've got guys that Jesse McGinty that plays with Pharrell currently, and Meghan Trainor. He's on it. Joe Sieders of the New Pornographers. I mean, it's just loaded with all this great talent. So, I mean, it's fun. If you like any of those people or any that I've just mentioned, then you probably like the record.
Well, it's pretty first class, and I would say that people who listen to it are going to like what they hear in your vocals and your songwriting. And, without comparing it to anyone, it's just a fantastic sounding record, and it's a melodic, and the lyrics are great from what I've heard so far. So I'm excited for you, man. And again, thank you for coming on. I will be talking to you soon for sure. And by the way, I'll follow up with you, but I am visiting the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Hopefully you'll be in town and we can get together. I'm going to get some of the...
I'd love to get together with you.
Yeah. I'm going to get some of the other guys that I know, including some who've been on the podcast there too. So I'll look forward to it, and I'll put a date. I'll put a date out at you, and maybe here in the show notes too for anyone who sees that. So we'll talk to you soon for sure.
Please do. I mean, we can get together with Lannie and all the Spider Pop guys, and it'll be a fantastic time. I'd love to do that. That'd be great.
That sounds great, man. I will definitely. You're on the VIP list.
Yeah, well, so are you, man. That sounds like a great time. I'd love to get together with you. And to anybody that's listening to the podcast, just thanks for listening, and I thank anybody for supporting music. I mean, it's wonderful, and more today than ever, artists need support and from the public. They really do. It's getting harder and harder to do it. The affirmation that you get from the audience is just as important as any money that you may ever get from it, because the money is kind of thin these days in the music business. So any love that you get from listeners is just fantastic, and it kind of makes it all worth it.
Here, man. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. We'll talk again soon.
My advice, you're looking down, feeling tired.
Hey, thanks again for listening. This episode was powered by the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, How to Get Booked and Paid What You're Worth Over and Over Again. Available in paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. The ebook is now available on Apple Books, Kobo.com, and just about anywhere else that you might find ebooks. It's also available as a standalone podcast called the Unstarving Musician's Guide podcast. You can learn more about the book and companion podcast at unstarvingmusician.com/book. I'd love it if you picked up a copy, and I'd love it even more if you left a review on Amazon. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.